Hey, thank you for coming to my show. I think you'll hear something today that makes you click that like button, share with your people, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Let's stay connected. Tell me what you think in the comments. Thank you for joining us here at Our Unseen Roots, where we highlight and recognize the women nourishing the Black community. And today we have Kayla Henning today with us. How are you today, Kayla?
I'm well. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine, thank you. I'm fine. I'm blessed. I'm excited to have you on the show.
Thank you.
The way I like to start things off is, who are you?
I actually just answered this at the Black Student Summit not too long ago, and the way I would answer it is my mother's child and my granny's grandbaby. I think that's who I am. That makes up all of what I do and why I do what I do, and all my shortcomings as well. Probably not all of them, but a few of them. Uh, but I would say those two folks are kind of who I am at the core.
Yeah, I like that answer. I've never heard that before, but I really enjoy that. Who are your role models that inspire you?
Yeah, well, I would definitely say my grandmother and my mother. My mom, I grew up only child, single mother. So me and my mother are very, very close. We always have been. And seeing the way that she's cultivated community, I also grew up not very close to my blood relatives. I wasn't really in super close contact to them, but had just this immense amount of family around me, especially in Evanston. And she's not originally from Evanston. You know, Evanston can be a little cliquey sometimes. It's tight. But the way that she was able to cultivate community has been something that not only has benefited me greatly, but something that I aspire to do and try to pick up on. And I think that she got that from my grandmother. So those are the two folks for me who the way they've navigated life is something that I look up to.
What unique perspective do you bring to your work due to your identity as a Black woman?
Yeah, I think my identity both as a Black woman and as a Black queer woman, I work as a community school director, so I work in a school. And I think that the ability to look at care as a mode of resistance, the ability to think about the interpersonal and weigh it just as greatly as we do these larger attempts at resisting bigger systems has been something that's been important to me. And I think Black women have this innate reaction to doing that. They have kind of been in that role throughout history. And so I think that would be my mode of where, being a Black woman has kind of helps me to balance and figure out when, like, this is just a moment where I can be here for a kid. And that may mean more than me trying to even create this big solution.
Can you share a success story on how your efforts made a tangible difference in someone's life?
Yeah, I can say I don't know how much of a tangible difference it made in their life, but it definitely made a difference in mine. I was a director at a camp when I was probably 18, and there was a kid who was having some difficulties, some behavioral issues, just really having trouble. And he had gotten a couple warnings and went out and did it again. And it's like, so the founder actually, it was kind of like we had a zero tolerance for like violent behavior. So he was like, he's got to go. And I was like, just give me one more shot with this kid. Just one more shot. And he did. He gave me a shot. He was like, listen, if it backfires, if I get a call from a parent, it's on you. And so I met with the kid's mother and the kid, and we talked about it. I said, like, hey, you only got one opportunity here. And later on, I could see him about to get in trouble. I was right there. He was about to make a really bad decision. This is like a third grader, right? So it's not crazy, but he was about to make a really bad decision. And I looked at him and I said, I had your back. So whose back do you have to have? And he was like, I got to have your back. And from that point on, there was probably a good 4 weeks left in the summer. We never had any issues. 3 years later, the kid is like grown up, right? Like in high school. And he comes up to me and he just like gives me a hug and he's like, you really had my back that one time. And I hadn't seen him in 3 years. That to me stressed the importance of the interpersonal and just being able to be there for kids, allowing to have a point person. So that changed how I move for sure.
It's obvious you made a huge impact on his life. 4 years later, he comes and gives you a huge hug and remembers he remembers the moment,
He did. Yeah.
You sometimes you just can't recreate the moment, but
Exactly.
it shows that relationships determine results.
For sure.
That's beautiful. What are some critical needs you see within the Black community that women are uniquely positioned to address?
Okay, so I don't know that I would answer this as, well, I guess, yeah, Black women are uniquely positioned to address. I think back to the aspect of care. I think like Hooks writes about this a lot, like the love in resistance. And I want to be careful about how I say this because like love is also an act of labor, and I don't believe that Black women should bear that labor alone. I do believe that Black women have a keen insight into how to do that labor. And there's a lot to be learned from the way in which Black activists over time, as well as just like Black women who have been head of households, have just been very diligent in their care as an act of resistance. And I think that sometimes we miss that. Sometimes we miss that, like, we're still humans. And so there's a lot of strategy involved and there's a lot of theory involved, but there also needs to be an aspect of the human experience involved and emotion and, just that balance. So I think Black women are uniquely positioned to address that, but I do think folks gotta follow. They're not uniquely positioned to solve that problem. Per se.
Well, you better stop playing with me and come on now. You dropping gems over here.
Thank you.
Gems. You welcome. Welcome. As a Black woman, what is your greatest superpower?
My legacy. My ancestors. I come from a lineage of folks who like have resisted and have survived, have built and cultivated, like it's baked into the cake. And so there are lessons that I don't necessarily have to go out and seek. They're there. And I believe that they're innate, and I appreciate that.
What are some innovative projects or initiatives led by Black women that inspire you?
That's a good initiatives and projects led by Black women that inspire me. I would say that, well, one is actually in my organization now, with the Y of Central Maryland. Our not head of DEI anymore, because it's not the title anymore, but she has really figured out a way to not only, I think that when DEI is done in the corporate spaces, and especially when it can be like a nonprofit space that is incredibly, like we have over 8,000 associates, right? This is a really big Y. So I think that it can get very watered down and like, hey, like, let's figure out how to be nice to each other. But she's been really thinking about DEI as a matter like of policy, how we operate, how we do school partnerships, how we seek out family centers. Like she's approached membership differently. And I think that's been really cool to see, because stepping into a nonprofit space that's also very much like a corporate world, it can be hard to figure out where you can still build. And so it's been nice to see that it doesn't all have to be kind of like sellout work.
Yeah. Do you feel like some of it is sellout work?
In the DEI space, yes. I think it can very much be not sellout work, but I think that, it's cool to have conversations. I don't think conversations are unimportant. I think they're incredibly necessary, but if the conversations we're having during these professional developments that nobody really wants to be at are not matching the actual work we're doing, then it does feel kind of like we're just checking off a box. We've got DEI here. We taught y'all how to get along. So if somebody files a harassment complaint, we got some security in the back. So I do appreciate that her work is really trying to make sure that the organization is aligned with that, the work that the organization is putting out.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds like she's about that action, boss.
Yes.
Absolutely. About that action. How can we, the community, better support and amplify the voices of Black women leaders and change makers?
That's a good question. I mean, I think we all need to, I think, listening to each other. And I really like the question you asked about being uniquely positioned. I think that we're all experiencing this like very visceral violence, and it is like often an anti-Black violence, and we are experiencing it differently through different methodologies. So it does uniquely position folks to be able to do different things or have the capacity for different things, or maybe have experienced different things. So I do think that one, understanding that, being okay with that and not being too prideful, seeing where like Black women, and then also doing some work in terms of understanding patriarchy and figuring out how we can kind of unlearn that first so that we can have a better sense of what we're doing under our movements and our, I think that would be the way to do it. A lot of learning, a lot of unlearning, and then a lot of listening.
I like that. A lot of learning, a lot of unlearning, and then a lot of listening. That's powerful because what you learn, sometimes you need to unlearn.
Absolutely.
In order to get down to build it back up the correct way.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, that's very prophetic.
Thank you.
You're welcome. What resources do you wish were more readily available of Black women who want to make a difference?
Community. Again, like that's why I was really careful about addressing the question of like where Black women are uniquely positioned to make change, because I do think that a lot of the labor sometimes, especially the care labor, historically has fallen on Black women, and it's been exploitative, right? Like, so like Black women through history have had to care for babies that weren't theirs, or tend to homes that weren't theirs, while being separated from their children, right? So I do want to be careful with that care, and also knowing that like Black women are addressing that and have been talking about that. So this baked in system of like, as we are pouring from our own cups, someone is there to pour into it as well, whether that's through like networks of Black women, and then also like multicultural coalition. I think that Black women are very tired. I think as seen by the election, right? Like everybody was like, we're sitting out, we're done. Black women are very tired. So I think care for the care is important.
Yeah. So then this next question, this next question right here may explain it all, but we'll see. How can men in the Black community be better allies and partners in the work of uplifting and empowering Black women?
Yeah, I think that work starts with just self-identity. What does it mean to be a Black man? And then what parts of that can we kind of let go? Because I bring this up way too much, but there is an essay by Stuart Hall, who's a Jamaican philosopher, and he talks about these three levels that like colonization has brought in. So he talks about presence American, presence African, and then he comes to this like presence Caribbean. or I'm sorry, presence European, presence African, and then he comes to a presence American, which would represent the Caribbean as well as Black American in this situation. And what I like that he does is sometimes we try to be like, all right, we're going back to this tribal version of self, this completely ancestral version of self, wiped away from all colonization, no imprints of white folks ever, and we just don't, like, completely indigenous, and we don't know that, like, we don't know what that looks like. We're so far removed from it, and it's not our reality. So what are we like? We're probably faking it, right? Like, it's probably a mock version of whatever we're trying to get back to anyway. Not to say that there isn't knowledge that has been preserved, but it's not this indigenous. And then also sometimes on the flip side of that, we come to this very like, well, this is what folks have told me being a Black man is, and I am going to live by that completely. That would be like the European version of that. And that's what it is. I'm going to do no work on that. And I like that Stuart Hall comes to this presence American, which is kind of combining the both of those, and more than combining, addressing both of. I can address the fact that, like, yeah, there's some patriarchy baked in my cake, and I've got to figure out what that means to me. There's also these incredible roots of indigeneity that are baked in my cake that, you know, haven't been lost. We're still drumming on the tables, that I also want to address. And being able to address all those things and then shed yourself of what doesn't make sense anymore, I think will inherently allow for Black men to better understand and listen to Black women, because there's a level of ego and misogyny that I think would be shed, which would allow us all, and not to say that it's just on Black men to do this work, I think Black women as well, everybody needs to be doing this work. I think we'll all be able to hear each other a little bit more. Phones on while we're talking to each other right now.
Yeah. You cooking. You cooking. You cooking right now. You really are. You're making me think of my situation as well, right? Like, so in my household, you know, we made some decisions where I stay home and I, you know, take care of the house, you know, make sure that the kids are set for, you know, school and so on and so forth. And at the same time, I didn't sit back and say, oh, okay, well then this is what I have to do and that's all I can do, right?
Exactly.
As a creator, as a creative, I'm an actor, so this is sort of in my realm to create
wow, okay.
benefit, right? And so you're right. Once we let go of the ego and we drop it, and what's best for our unity, right?
Exactly.
What's best for our family. And so, man, you cooking. I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
How do you manage the emotional labor and challenges that come with serving your community?
That can be hard. It can definitely be challenging. I think stepping into this role has been specifically challenging in that regard, just for some understanding of what I do. I'm a community school director in a bigger community school strategy, which is trying to merge the community and the school so that the folks in the school are getting the resources that they need, as well as the community is a part of this school, right? So half of what I do is like partnership stuff, getting the money, getting the checks signed, things of that nature, services. The other half is working directly with students and families and kind of almost like a social worker role, without the same restrictions and regulations that social workers and the paperwork that social workers have to go through. But yeah, there are times where, you know, parents are calling me at 8 p.m. saying, you know, it's the dead of winter and my bill is too high. I can't pay it. Like, my lights are gonna go off. My heat is gonna go off. There are times where parents are like, especially now, like, I am scared to pick my kid up because the school is no longer a sensitive community, and I am scared that ICE may come to the school and grab me. Like, these are things that we're dealing with on a daily basis. So the labor can be heavy per se. But I think one, standing in the intentions. I don't work for community. I work with the community. We collaborate together. And there are times where I will be down and I feel like I could call these folks just as they call me. That's not their role. That's not their title. But because of the relationships we're building, that's what we're able to kind of cultivate. And then the second thing is I do turn my phone off sometimes. There are days where, no matter what's going on, I am at home making a meal. If it's a crazy emergency, you might be able to get to me. But I'm going to turn my phone off for Sunday because this is much bigger than me. I'm not in the work of saving folks. I'm in the work of being in relationship with folks. And it would be naive and kind of boastful of me to believe that I'm the only person who could do it. These folks have created community all around them. And so if I don't answer my phone on a Sunday at 7 p.m., that doesn't mean the problem isn't going to get solved. I'm not a superhero. So that's been helpful.
Yeah. So when you say you say you don't work for the community, you work with the community. And if you've got community members and parents who are afraid to go pick up their child from school because of ICE, do you take on that responsibility for them?
I think I will. I don't know that take on the responsibility is the right word. I will sit down and listen. One because so it's just in my positionality, I haven't been afraid of ICE necessarily, right? So I'm also not going to act like an expert. This isn't the first time that folks have been scared that immigration is going to close in on their families. And so one, being a listener, so this is the problem. What are some ways that we can work this out? And if there are things that I can do and bring to the table, I will bring those to the table. And while also allowing the families to pick and choose kind of what works and what doesn't. I tell, sometimes I suggest programs to my families, and, I tell them all the time, they'll be like, no, this is not gonna work for me. And I'm like, all right, let's throw it out. I'm not gonna try to force you or act as if I know what's best for your schedule, best for your situation. I'm just here to kind of stand with you and make sure that you're not the only person who's tackling this in this situation. If we go to Social Security, there's been times where I go to Social Security with my parents, and I'll be candid, I'm 23. I don't know much about this. I can advocate and I can be a voice, and you're not going alone. But when you come down and tell those people, no, it's this, actually, I'm just behind you saying, yeah, it's this. So that's what I mean by working with. I don't assume to know how to solve people's problems. I think folks have a lot of agency in figuring out their own problems. I'm just here to help with the resource aspect.
Glad you said your age, because I'm sitting there wondering, how old is this young lady with all this knowledge, man? All these jewels that she's dropping. Well, so how do you celebrate your own achievements and contributions as a Black woman making a difference?
Well, one, I have a family, I will say this, who celebrates me deeply. So they don't let too many celebrations pass them by. So that I've been very grateful for that. They sit me down and we're all here because this is amazing, and would do the same for them as well. But in terms of celebrating on my own, I've just gratitude. I think gratitude and pride can kind of merge together. When I am grateful for something, I just get more prideful about it. And then I move on, to be honest. I am very proud, and I am excited, and I'm hungry. I want more. I don't feel like this is all. I don't want to settle. And that's not in a work grinder mode necessarily. It's just an imaginative way. I think things can be better. I think I can be better. And also, incentives on the way. That's what we do in the school, with big attendance goals and stuff like that. We're trying to get a month-long attendance goal. Every week there might be little incentives. Congratulations, you did a week. So I try to do that with myself too. Small incentives, knowing that there's a bigger goal in sight.
What are your hopes and dreams for the future of the Black community, and how do you see yourself being a part of shaping that future?
What we were talking about earlier in terms of the work of being able to hear each other, I think that we right now, if I had to assess, are kind of, I don't know that we have this grand like unity. Sometimes my friends and I have this conversation about if when there were like prominent figures for Black communities, like was that better because we were kind of able to grasp onto an idea and say like, all right, this is what we're doing, whether it was MLK's idea or Malcolm's idea, whatever it was, like whoever these prominent figures were, was that better? I don't know that we have that at all right now. We don't have like one leader, which is fine, but I also don't think we have any lead. I think we're kind of all just thinking a lot of thoughts, which is great. But I don't know that we're there yet, ready to mobilize. And so I think part of it is I'm excited for the day that we're ready to mobilize. My role in that, I don't know. I don't want to be at the forefront of that. What I will do and continue to do is read, study, and share whatever I can, whether it's other folks' works or maybe some ideas that I've been sitting on, but and be in community with folks until we are ready. Kind of like the, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Doing that work for myself, so that when we get there, I can be as helpful as possible is kind of where I work last.
What do you think are some steps?
I think that this is going to be like a very anti-Gen Z take, but I do think that social media is kind of, everybody has thoughts. Not everybody is studying, but everybody's sharing. So I think there's a lot of just like thought. I really appreciate my group of friends because we really sit on thoughts for a long time before we share and use text and media and experience to kind of sharpen those thoughts before they're ready to like be spread. I think right now everybody spreads the first idea that comes to their head, and because TikTok and Instagram and all these things are so big, everybody's got a voice. I don't know that we all need a voice. I think we could all, we could all sit down for a second. We could read a little bit more. We could, talk in our communities, in smaller spaces a bit more, and be open to that. And I think that would put us in the right direction.
If someone thinks you're stupid, it's better to keep your mouth shut than to open it and remove all doubt. I
think we're just all expanding. I think, niches are really cool. And I love TikTok. Don't get me wrong. I love social media. I just think that we are expanding our range deeply. That's why I like the work that you're doing, because it's very localized. I think social media has like destroyed localization. I hear people use Chicago slang in Baltimore all the time, and I'm like, how do you even know that we use that at, and so it's kind of gotten rid of like the experts of our spaces, the experts of our niches, and I sometimes think we feel like we have more range than we do. So that would be what I'm thinking.
What does liberation look like for Black women?
I'm going to give you a really bad answer to this probably, but I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. I know that it would take a lot of, I was actually just having this conversation with my mother, like destruction of what we do know. And it would maybe be a little bit uncomfortable at times because as much as this is violent and visceral, there's a level of comfort built into it because it's what we've known for however long. And I think that liberation would be so vastly different from that, and it may be uncomfortable at times. So sometimes I question whether people really truly want to be liberated. But to be imaginative, I think that there's a level of, I think, where systems of violence, larger systems of violence, don't impact the interpersonal so much. I'm able to, like, racism doesn't impact my ability to love. Racism doesn't impact my ability to care, doesn't impact my ability to just like be a partner, whatever it may be a kid, be a mother, all of these things. I think racism impacts that at the most minute level every second of our day. It runs it. And I think that to be liberated of that would be amazing.
Yeah, you think love will help liberate us from the racism and the hate and all that other stuff?
Yes, and it's like a big chicken or egg question for me, because I also think that though our capacity for love is so greatly impacted by anti-Blackness, so it's kind of hard for me to ask folks to love in this way when it's like, how can I focus on my child and I, don't know what I'm gonna eat tomorrow, So how I think of this example often, and it'll be a short one. It's like when Black moms are in a grocery store and they're like, don't touch nothing, don't go in this store touching anything, and you see the white kids like running all around touching everything, like just being kids and being free, right? And I understand why Black mothers do that, right? It's like, I'm trying to protect you, because you start touching stuff and we start building these habits, I can't protect you from what may come. And it's also like you're controlling your child at a very young age in a way that may not be beneficial for them. And that's the like tension that the interpersonal and the systems kind of have at play. And I think that, changes what motherhood is. So yes, I do think love would help to liberate, and also love is being so deeply impacted. So
Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, let's stay connected.